Whip, 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 whip. Your host, Rizzle. Foxy Yoga on the intro. Valentatilistic banana making all the things. Dragon Ink in the box, box, box. Hidden Forces is a robot. Tati wants you to donate. Fractillions is spawning shit in real time. Fabiano and Patrizia. Rat-a-tat-tat. Get low, it's MLO. Let's try not to break anything. Whip, 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 whip.
Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your host, Rizzle. Excuse me. The funny thing about that intro is that, I don't know, I had like yin yang twins stuck in my head and like MLO, and I was like, get low, and I was like, make a jingle in the style of the yin yang twins, and it did not deliver at all. Actually, it gave me that, but I just rolled with it. Yo, if you're listening to me right now, shout out to the people lurking on Twitch, Twitter, wherever, YouTube, wherever else we're streaming. If you want to get in on the action, we're in the general channel here of Discord, so find your way in here. That's where all the links will be dropped and all the real banter is at. We are also in Hyperfi, where we got a whole bunch of graphics set up for MLO to tell us about what he's cooking up. So please jump into Hyperfi with us. If you're getting like weird double audio, mute your Hyperfi tab. If you are naked, there's avatars in Toxam's avatar lab. As soon as you spawn in, dropping the link to the spot in the parcel. So hop in, come check out the stuff as MLO is talking about it. We'll be wandering around looking at some of the graphics. We'll take a group shot in there towards the end, and yeah, that'll be today's event. It'll be good. Let's see, a few links to drop and just some like housekeeping stuff before we get started. This is a link from Tati. She made this. She vibe coded this donation site. If you want to use it for your own projects, you can use it, but we use it for the WIP to try and extort you all for your funds. So please send us your money. We're all poor and we need it. Let's see, speaking of poor, we're giving you WIP coin. If you go to the WIPmeetup.com, I haven't done it yet, but it worked last week. And you sign the guest book in the top right corner, click through the prompts, blah, 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 blah. That's how you're gonna get today's gifts from Fabiano and Patrizia. You're also gonna get WIP coin just for coming through for today's event. And you can take that WIP coin and you can go to the Trinity Labs website that myself and Epic Dylan set up, and you can stake that and earn it, earn rewards and other tokens, so it doesn't nuke our token, and that's how you get all the stuff. So sign the guest book, go to the WIP Meetup, go to the WIPmeetup.com. It'll be open throughout the course of the event, so if you get there and it's broken or whatever, just, you know, let me know sometime. We'll figure it out. So I think that's the major updates. We got MLO in the house. Yes, it works. It says you're checked in. Valiant one WIP coin and rats from Fabiano and Patrizia. Yo, if you don't know MLO, you should know MLO. MLO is actually studying crypto art history in like a very serious capacity. He might be the only person doing it on the planet. And therefore legitimizing all of us and all of what we have done so far. He's also got a new project that he's here to talk about. Yes, man. And also, two congratulations are in order. Foxy Yoga let it slip that she's got a baby fox in the oven. So congratulations, Foxy Yoga. And if Twitter is not lying to me, it was MLO's birthday yesterday, unless he just like filled it up with some garbage stats. So happy birthday to MLO. Congratulations, Foxy Yoga. Yeah, yo, what's up, dude? Why don't you introduce yourself for people who aren't already familiar with you, and tell people what's going on, man. Everyone else should hop into Hyperfi here so you can follow along as well.
Sure. So I'm MLO. I'm an artist based in Canada. Joined this crazy crypto as a painter in about 18, and one of my first projects in 18 was playing with Bitcoin data, and at one point these seed phrase words I was playing around resulted into a cloud shape, and that was the beginning of my, I guess, cloud themed art using clouds as a metaphor for Bitcoin. And yeah, this is going to be now almost 10 years, and all of my artworks ever since revolve around clouds and the idea of being intangible, being continuously evolving, but also being fragile, right? This whole ecosystem is basically just this closer consensus. And if people would stop believing in it, everything could just dissipate like clouds again. So around that idea, I started making art. And I also was fascinated by the fast speed this space grew. I was invited at the end of 2018 to make an artwork at the Canadian Centre for Architecture in Montreal. It was like a blockchain event, and I thought, okay, I'm going to spend a couple of months. I'm going to make like this super interesting, in my opinion, super interesting data visualization with live data. And then when I published it, I noticed like, oh wow, artists like Ria Myers did similar things already in 2014. So that got me onto the track of like, okay, before I invest so much time in new artworks, I have to kind of understand the history. And that drove me basically in an own rabbit hole. And I started documenting the history, ended up publishing a bit about it, started then building this timeline. Many years ago, we tried to put it on Wikipedia, but it got taken down continuously. So I gave up and started putting it on my website ever since. And then since early this year, as Rizal already mentioned, I started now working on a PhD in art history, and the real subject is contextualizing crypto art. So really trying to find this bridge and link to make crypto art better understood in the way we understand it, and not maybe some venture capital or others from the outside, and trying to kind of put it in a narrative that fits or an agenda or something, but really go on a more academic approach and trying to capture it as what it was and how it was. That's maybe a good start for background, or is there anything else I should mention, Rizal?
No, that's great, man. It's a really good start. And dude, I have questions, but I'm going to let you keep going. I'm very curious about your studies. But feel free to go ahead, man. We'll if anyone else has questions for MLO, feel free to drop them in the general channel, and then we can do like a Q&A once he's done talking about the project a little bit more.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a monologue, so I'm happy if people have questions. Yeah, so a while ago, I started really obsessing about central bank digital currencies. That was something which I thought was very scary from a conceptual point of view. And I saw the legislation progress, and I thought like, okay, it's time to maybe make an artwork around it to kind of get people aware of what is happening and how it's happening. So I started thinking about the idea of making a fictional but somewhat realistical central bank digital currency. And I started with my project Do Not Accumulate. Do Not Accumulate, really the acronym is DNA, because at its core of a central bank digital currency, the idea is that you can no longer accumulate wealth. If you are not familiar with the topic, a little tangent, it all started after the real estate crisis. The governments wanted to stimulate the economy, and Europe in 2014 introduced basically negative interest rates. And negative interest rates means basically whatever, you go to work, you get taxed, you put your money on a savings account, and everything you have saved suddenly gets like a negative interest, because the government doesn't want you to sit on your money. The government wants you to spend, to invest, to participate in the economy. And you basically get, if you keep your money, every month a little art deducted. And this was basically introduced to central banks at the beginning, and they passed it then on slowly to the public. And since it happened very low and staged, there was not really a real uproar. So it went live for almost like 8 years. And it showed basically that, it works as the idea of like, okay, we can break basically this idea of government money is no longer a store of value. We can basically also tap into this and create basically a programmable money. And during the time they introduced the negative interest rates, they also kind of eliminated one of these basically easy ways out, because back at that time there was like a 500 euro bill, and they basically, in the process of introducing these increasingly negative interest rates, they also discontinued the 500 euro bill to make it really cumbersome, you know, to store a lot of cash outside of the banking system. So moving forward, I started basically then working on an artwork which is called Do Not Accumulate, and the first sub-series of that is the digital euro. The digital euro is basically a net art piece, and I don't know if it makes sense to maybe walk around in these little displays, but it's basically inspired of a real 20 euro bill, and uses a lot of these visual, because I wanted, you know, to hit really close to home. And use a lot of these elements in a way that they look familiar, but have really this twist on, like, okay, how could the government basically realize something like that? And one of the core principles of this CBDC I created is really, it's this demurrage cycle. So basically this piece is a 21-month cycle artwork. Every month, this artwork is cycling down from a value of 20 down to a value of 0. So 21 value states, and every month it's basically reduced by 1. Alongside this basically idea that, you know, it kind of shows you visually how your money is disappearing, it has what I like to call the propaganda machine. So in the bottom left corner, you see basically how this bill, how the government would basically promote you, all the ways a CBDC could be weaponized against the public. You know, something like geofencing, that you're not allowed to spend money outside of your country, or you have just an approved vendor list, you have spending caps on categories. You know, you can only spend so and so much money on, let's say, leisure or holidays, or I don't know, alcohol, whatever. So all of this could be basically programmed into the currency once it would be a digital only currency. And the bill basically uses these threats. You know, these are like very easy threats, but there's like also more scarier, like things that they can freeze your assets very easily. They don't need to go through the banking system and things like that. So all of these threats, basically the bill takes and then reframes them as propaganda. So it will promote these features as, like, you know, necessities for your convenience, for your security, for basically, you know, facilitating ease of use. But really what is happening, it reframes all of the ways, and there's 55 different basically system warnings, how I call them, in which they show how a CBDC could be basically used against the public. And the idea is basically that, you know, this is basically how it would be fed, spoon-fed to us, that this is actually a good thing, while we are basically reaching a point where this is going to be a reality. Because one thing which I think, and I don't know where most of the people sit right now which are watching this, but in Europe, basically, we have started this project many years ago. And last year, Europe committed 1.3 billion euros into launching the digital euro by 2029. So 2029 is the soft launch of this digital euro. A couple of years back, they launched a framework, an identity framework, which was called the EIDAS 2.0. It was promoted as sort of like the digital wallet for every citizen, and it's promoted under, you know, the convenience of travel. You're going to have all the documents you need to kind of like identify yourself towards the government or organizations. But in behind that curtain is also already the technical guardrail to host a digital euro like that. And basically last year, with Europe committing 1.3 billion, we have reached basically a point of no return at this stage. So it's I guess for me, one of the core ideas of this artwork is just people to be aware of what is happening in Europe, become active, you know, trying to address politicians, I don't know, at any level, municipal, regional, national, to kind of steer the legislation, because at the end of the day, there's still a lot of things which can be changed or guided through. But if this whole thing is happening behind people's back, then it becomes dangerous, right? So you see a lot of these imagery in the bills itself. You have basic clouds appearing from the very right edge of these bills, moving towards the left and then disappearing like the value. But all of these clouds and the value destruction is basically happening in the background, because a lot of these projects are getting like fancy names or project titles which are reported on, but they're not necessarily made in a way that the public really comprehends or should apprehend that, because it happens kind of like behind the scenes. So that is kind of like the idea in a very broader concept. What I really enjoyed about working, and this is my first project with ordinals, having worked with different protocols, I found very fascinating the idea that you can basically link an artwork to a very specific set. So I spent actually a few months trying to hunt sets, which is called, trying to really put some of these cornerstones editions on real milestones of the CBDC legislation in Europe. So I have, for instance, the series marker, which starts on the very same day Europe introduced negative interest rates. There's the series markers, the first and 21st editions. They all happen really on real milestones. So you can read basically this technical infrastructure, or plumbing, how some people call it, and it recreates some sort of an limited or a simplified timeline of this legislation as well. And that's something I did not know about any other protocols so far. So I found that really cool, because it totally added for me this conceptual layer, which I haven't seen before, and which I find is super interesting. And I definitely want to explore that more. Working basically on this project, I really wanted to mint and create everything myself. So I was very grateful that the team of Anchor, and I don't know if anybody knows Anchor, it's kind of like a Bitcoin-based drop studio. So a couple of the guys from the team, Proper and Stephen Rice, they really helped me with a lot of questions so that I could really do it myself, because I think it was super important for me to really learn and also like understand what I'm doing, so I can, make this educated decision of what I'm doing there myself. And, kind of like in the nutshell is you have basically the series of these 21 editions, which cycle through a 20-month cycle, and all of them are like time offsets. So all of these editions at any given time show a different state. So there's a lot of like references towards the 21, which is for me always kind of like, linked to the supply cap of Bitcoin. And with the idea of creating this on Bitcoin, it was really the idea of like, okay, we can use that medium also like as the argument, right? Because Bitcoin, with its hard cap, with its, censor-proof protocol, that is basically exactly the opposite of what a CBDC would be. And in this way, I tried to play with the idea that the medium could actually become the argument itself. So I don't know if this should suffice maybe as an intro. I don't want to kind of monologue too much about it. Maybe there's a couple of questions, or we can walk around the different things and I can point things out. But in a nutshell, that's basically the new project. The launch started also on the day where Europe announced the end of the negative interest rates, exactly 4 years after the real date. So it was intentionally always kind of constructed around these real life events, because I thought it would be just super interesting to play with a lot of these parallels.
First of all, man, if this is live, we need a direct link here in the general channel. Dude, I just wanted to say, like, I really appreciate the context of this project and the story. And this is something that I was off my radar completely. I was completely unaware of, like, all the financial dynamics that you had just mentioned and everything. And so at least on some scale, man, I think you're accomplishing your goal of just straight up bringing awareness to the situation here. And I saw a couple other people co-signing in the chat as well. So, dude, we got a couple questions, man. Again, the story and the context of the project is really, really cool and important. I'm trying to figure out just nuts and bolts here. The project is live. People, we're looking at sort of static images in Hyperfi, but these are actually like dynamic NFTs, right? They're like moving and changing as time goes on.
They're like live. You have, for instance, the EU flag there is turning into an eye, and this basically ring of circles is watching, like the government would watch over every single transaction and authorizing and logging it and everything. You have the circles, which are the bigger circle of rings of stars. It's basically 12 stars like the EU flag, but it also represents like the face of a watch or a clock. And it turns relentlessly against the direction the clouds are basically dissipating towards. So there's a lot of like subtle animations. The idea was like it's not in your face, but it's basically constantly consuming it. You have like this in this gray kind of like magnetic stripe on the real bill. There's kind of like a status bar, right, where every month a unit of the value disappears. It indicates this in the status bar, which creates really this sense of like loss, and then it incentivizes you to spend before you lose even more. So there's subtle animations and there's bigger animations. This propaganda machine, which you will see basically on the left side. This text is basically rotating every 20 seconds towards like a different message. How this bill is basically promoting a weaponization of a financial construct, and then it adds a timer warning, basically warning you when is the next or how many days are remaining until you will lose another euro of your bill. So there's actually, yes, it's absolutely dynamic. It's not an image. It's basically all code based. So it's an HTML file. It uses JavaScript, CSS, SVGs, and it creates this kind of like real idea how a CBDC could actually work and look like.
Dude, I'm struggling to find an animated
no worries.
video.
Throw one in because there is on the ordinals page. If you look at, I'll drop it in. Just give me a second.
Oh, here we go. Here's a post with one of them moving around. I'll drop that in here too.
I'll post the preview link. Can you? I think I successfully posted it here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Perfect, man.
And you see, does it work?
Yes. Hang on. Actually, probably switch to that on the screen share. There we go. Yeah, dude. So I'm looking at I'm trying to take a bunch of this in right now. The drop is. The project is live. There's 21 of these total. They're all dynamic in various ways. When they go, and tell me if I don't have any of that right. I'm just sort of like running through the checklist in my head of like how all this works. When they go to zero, man, is that like, does the money just burn up in your wallet, or is that like sort of the end of the performance art?
It's the end of the cycle. So the following month it would reset back to 20. It would basically assume that you were creating value, right? You would go to work, you would create something of value, and you would be compensated basically for another 20 euro, which would then again be in your wallet and being slowly destroyed again as you're not spending it.
Yo, cool.
So it's basically always a 21-month cycle where it cycles through. I needed to work with the 20 unit bill because I wanted to have these 21 states, right? These 21 value states.
Yeah, man, it's a very interesting story behind the art. Ballistic Banana has a question. How can we help promote MLOs how can we help promote MLO's art? I assume you're saying the Northern Europeans don't understand this. How/where is MLO sharing?
I don't know. I guess Twitter is probably where it's shared best. I can drop a couple of links. I tried to put in a thread together explaining several of these main concepts. It is a lot to unpack. That's always been a passion of mine, I guess. Trying to pack a lot of ideas and concepts into an artwork so you can kind of like unpeel like an onion. And I'm just going to try to put it here into the chat as well. And then Eleonora of 100 Collectors, they also put today a nice little thread about the artwork, which was super nice. She kind of distilled this idea as well, you know, that the idea is really the medium becomes the argument, right, for it. And I think that is a super strong link for me, because I found a lot of, there's still very early, I find, with ordinals, there's some, but not that many really conceptual pieces. So I thought it would be a really cool time, especially now that everybody's hating ordinals, to do something with it. Because I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there's like this big BIP 110 debate about like spamming the Bitcoin and stuff like that. So I think it's also conceptually a super good time to do that. There is one element to it which was kind of like a plot twist for me, which I wasn't really aware of, so when I created this drop, I created basically this drop for 19 editions, right? From the edition 2 to 20, because these cornerstone editions, how I call them, edition 1 and 21, they were mined or inscribed on very, very specific sets of the CBDC legislation. And I wanted to sell them basically outside of the drop. And to set up the drop, I had to remove them from my wallet, and I transferred them into another wallet. And after I set up this drop on or.net, I basically wanted to transfer them back, right? And I transferred them back, and the transfer basically between wallets is kind of like a safe transfer. There's no issues. But it took forever, and I got impatient, and I remembered, you know, you can have this fee replacement, RBF transaction, where you can basically accelerate the Bitcoin transaction by just increasing basically your gas postage or whatever. And as I was doing that, what I didn't consider is that I imported my wallet into Sparrow, and Sparrow is like totally oblivious of inscriptions, right? So Sparrow basically used my inscription number 21 and paid basically that as postage. So basically the idea, you know, that, and I posted just the link into the chat as well if you want to know more about it, because the idea is like how this happened and how you can prevent this from happening, but basically how the wallet kind of like assumed the value of this inscription and paid it out. And it was ironically paid out to the Ocean Mining Pool. And the Ocean Mining Pool is basically the very first mining pool which officially committed themselves to the BIP 110 protocol, which is basically against spamming ordinals and NFTs. And now I basically approached them and said like, hey, I'm offering you guys a bounty, you know, would you send it back? And now I'm just waiting to see what had happened. So typically, you know, it's as a currency which, you know, forces you to spend. I was basically, the protocol took this inscription away from me and spend it as well. So it was kind of like a conceptual link I didn't anticipate, and I'm curious how it develops from here right now.
Dude, how's your experience putting this on ordinals? I know you had mentioned that this was your first project. I've messed around with it a little bit. I've never actually like released anything on ordinals before. How was your experience with that compared to? I assume you've done most of your work on Ethereum, or at least last I checked.
Yeah, I did most of it in Ethereum, a little bit on Counterparty, a little bit on There's also a few things, but yeah, mostly Ethereum. So Bitcoin was definitely a different beast. It also depends how deep you want to go, right? I mean, if you are not very, I guess, strict on where you want to, on which SAT, because in ordinals, you basically mint on a specific SAT, right? The smallest denomination of a Bitcoin. With the SAT, you can basically choose your SAT and then inscribe a very specific SAT. And in order for this series, what really took me a long time to wrap my head around is like, okay, how do I inscribe on a specific SAT and how do I get a specific SAT, right? So there's like a whole ecosystem where people are like selling rare SATs, and rare SATs are, for instance, Satoshis, which are the very first one of a Bitcoin block or very first one of a Bitcoin. So there's like certain like rarities in it. There is, but all of them are basically dated to the very block they were mined on, right? So you can find basically Satoshis on the day Silk Road was seized, or the pizza day, the first real Bitcoin pizza day. So you can really hunt for these very rare sats and then mint your pieces in. That was an element which was not that easy for me to understand. That's where I was having a lot of questions, and I was very happy that I had some friends which are very patient with me. And then if you want to do it yourself, it's kind of also sometimes nerve-wracking, because splitting sats is then one of these difficult processes where you have basically a Bitcoin, to create a UTXO, this unspent transactions, you basically have to create a UTXO and you have to structure it that the very first SAT you want to inscribe on sits on the position 0, basically in the first position of this UTXO. So you're going to have to make some transactions to split it, to basically create a certain amount of sats, and I believe it was 456. That is basically an fixed value, which will then prevent it from being spent as like dust for the miners, for like as gas fees. So there's a couple of there's a learning curve there for sure. It was definitely not like, okay, upload your image and mint, if that answers your question a little bit. But once that is solved, then there's the whole idea of like recursive structures. So recursive structures is basically the idea that instead of, and in a piece like that, which is a net piece, which uses like a lot of code in that sense, it would be kind of like a waste to mint or mine this code 21 times, right? While I'm reusing the largest portions of it. So recursive structures, basically you're creating some sort of like parent and child structures in your NFT, where you can then reference the code in each of the editions. There's like 4 or 5 references basically into other inscriptions, which for instance exist as fonts, right? I inscribed 3 fonts to make sure that these builds look cohesive and the same among devices, among operating systems. So these basically fonts are embedded as inscriptions, and these builds reference them. So these are kind of little elements which you learn along on the way of creating this construct, that really the inscription itself, the bill itself, is a very lean code file, because it's basically this parameterized, right? It says like, oh, this is edition, I don't know, 20. It is it gives you a little bit of metadata, and then there's kind of like this unique HTML template, which then references all of these other recursions into one file, and it works. So there's definitely it's a little bit more to learn. But if you just want to say, hey, I want to mint Rizzle as a selfie on Bitcoin, I guess then it's probably not as complicated.
It's interesting, man, especially as someone who's never, gone that deep into it. Would you do it again? Like, would you,
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just for me, like I think as an artist, this idea that I can do that on specific dates, that is super powerful for me. And I definitely think I'm going to do a couple of artworks which are going to play with these real dates of events and things like that. It took me for this series, I think I was hunting sats for 3-4 months. That is a lot of time. So you have to be patient because, there used to be like a huge ecosystem with Versats marketplaces. So with, this crypto winter over the past few years, a lot of that disappeared. So it became much more difficult to get your hands on specific dates and things. But if you have, let's say, no time pressure, and want to do something conceptually, I think it's brilliant. I really enjoy it.
Dude, talk to me about your crypto art history studies and how this is or is not related at all. And my follow up to that is I would just love to hear what some of your colleagues, study partners, like whatever. I would imagine you're sort of like on your own island in terms of like what you're studying, and I'm genuinely interested in what people's reactions have been to that.
So I guess it's a PhD in that regard is a little bit different, right? Because I think in a PhD, the one I chose is very research focused, right? It's like you're not sitting in a class anymore. Really, the biggest hurdle you have is to find 2 professors which are excited about your subject. And that was something which took me about 1.5 years to find 2 people who are like knowledgeable and excited about the subject. Because approaching, I guess, people, in different countries, different universities, I got a lot of like, I'm like not interested in this at all. I don't like blockchain. I don't like NFTs. So even like people, who are working at the, I guess, edge of like contemporary art and whatsoever, some of them even with digital art, when it comes to blockchain and things like that, I think with all of this critical studies and whatever, there's still this perception, that Bitcoin is something from like, a more Western or colonized phenomena, which it totally isn't, which I think it's super interesting to see. And I think this is one of the sections which I'm going to spend a bit of time in my dissertation kind of like showing that, we use in the Western world NFTs and crypto, yes, for a very different use case, but there's like a whole global South which has a way, way higher adoption rate on crypto than we have here in the West, because they use it for real world problems, right? They fight like hyperinflation, they fight of like access to a financial system, they fight confiscation or oppression and whatsoever. And in these countries, they lead basically the I guess the amount of people who are engaging with it on a daily basis in a meaningful way. And I think that is something which was very surprising to me to see, that there's a lot of skepticism. I guess surprising and not, I mean, we've been long enough in the space to have heard our share of all sorts of assumptions, claims, or being NFTs as scams and money laundering and whatsoever. So people are not everybody has the interest time to look beyond that. So that was, I guess, the challenge, to find really 2 professors which are excited about the topic, and then also believe that you are the person who will finish it, because this is a 4-year commitment. That is something which is quite a bit. So yes, I'm now in my second term will start now. I'm right now working on a research paper on the definitions, right? The definitions is always something I've been working and talking about a lot. And now I'm working on basically showing that on a quantitative level, that when people talk about crypto art, they not really talk about art, because a lot of the examples given, discussed in, in the public and even in academia are not really good examples, and most of them aren't even art. So I'm trying to kind of, in my first, or in my newest paper, this is kind of one of the core topics or elements I'm working on right now, and this will become then a chapter of this dissertation.
I didn't realize you had searched for 2 people to buy into your program for a year and a half, man. That's some serious dedication to what you're interested in studying,
Well,
man.
it's I probably could have gone earlier, but I wanted to have like the right fit, right? There's maybe more people who would have been able to do it, but you want to have people who who support you and who also guide you. So I was like very happy. Now I'm working with Tristan at the Tristan Weddingen at the University of Zurich in Switzerland. And I work with Charlotte Kent. Some people know her maybe as Lucy Scribbles. She is a professor in New Brunswick in the US. And these were supervisors which really gave me extremely tangible feedback and more applicable and like really hands-on than anybody else. And I had really a good feeling that this would be kind of like a good team to assemble and to work with for the next 4 years.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you've obviously like vetted the people that you want to work with and everything, and no, and I appreciate that, man. I think it'd be easy to, well, probably not easy, but easier path to just line something up and try and knock it out. But spending a year and a half just to lay the groundwork for what you want to study, man, I appreciate your dedication. Dude, this is a lot, man, and I don't mean that in a bad way. You've packed a lot of like really interesting information and context into this project here. I'm gonna just sort of a side note here. I'm just gonna drop the link in World, and people want to take a look at what we've been looking at. I'm screen sharing too. Dude, what else do people need to know about all this, about what you've been working on? Yeah, this is really cool, man. Ballistic Bananas like co-signing as well. Like I genuinely appreciate you putting a lot of this on my radar, which was not something I was super familiar with until now.
Thanks, appreciate it. I think in general, it's harder for conceptual pieces to find, the eyes and the audience because it's not self-explanatory, right? And I think I personally find it super exciting and interesting if you can go in depth into an artwork, dissect it, and find out like different layers of ideas and concepts behind it. But it's definitely something where you rely a lot on opportunities like today, where people can hear about it, learn more about it, and at least get some pointers to read about it and understand it. Because, as I said, if it's in these days attention span, working on something on a more conceptual level is not always easy to find people who take the time to read through it.
I am honored, man, that we were able to give you a platform to explain it, and this will get recorded and dumped into our YouTube channel, so people will be able to come back and reference it and learn about the project and the context behind it all, and everything, man. No, really, really cool. Want to just remind everyone, we're like almost at the top of the hour. If you haven't gone to the WIPmeetup.com to sign the guest book, it's in the top right corner, and that is how you get to accumulate things from the events today. Fabiano Patricia, NFTs. You're gonna get some WIP coin in your wallet. So make sure everyone goes and signs the guest book. If you have any problems with that, let me know. And everyone, let's get everyone in World here. We'll figure out a good spot to get in front of. If anyone has any other questions for MLO, feel free to drop them in the general channel here. And once again, MLO, anything else? Links that need to be dropped, information that needs to be had, professors that we need to know about. What else do we need, man?
Yeah, I can maybe also show.
Dragonade had a question. Okay, Dragonade's question. Go ahead, though. This is sort of an aside. I've been blaming Dragonade is the person I communicate with the most in Canada, and so I've been blaming him for the wildfires, which are currently here in my backyard sometimes. So he was actually wondering if I could blame you, but I ignored him because I wasn't going to do that because I'm going to blame Dragonade probably.
No, this is good. I just dropped another link. This is basically Eleonora Breezy. She kind of did today 5 things you need to know about the series. I see the post now. she kind of also tried to dissect it basically in 5 short slides to get the idea of the projects around it. And I thought that was really cool how she way more eloquently than me was able to dissect the piece and make it understandable. But yeah, if you want to know more about, me, my art research whatsoever, the MLO.art, that's also my domain. The dot written out, so MLO.dot art is the handle on Instagram and Twitter. And yeah, I think we have dropped here the link to the series. You can find pretty much everything from there.
Yo, amazing, man. Shout out Hackatow, Eleonora, for hooking you up with a nice post, man. That's a great explanation right
Fantastic.
there. Yeah. So let's do this. Let's get maybe buy this big €20 note. We'll come over here in world. Look for the frog standing in front of it with the cute frog butt. Dragonade, if you want to play maybe a minute or two worth of music, everyone hop in world and get by the currency, and we'll take a group shot.
I'm jumping into it now.
All right, yeah, that's probably good. I like that Dragonate shouts out the artist. It's proper form. Big shout out MLO for coming through this week. That was incredible. I had some idea what to expect, but I did not know the whole context behind the artwork. So check out all MLO's stuff. If you're not familiar with his art, he puts a lot of time, effort, and thought into all of his pieces. So go check out his website. And I think that's about everything for this week. Make sure you sign the guest book. If you haven't already, go to the WIPmeetup.com. If you miss us in between weeks, you can also go to the WIPmeetup.com and check out all of our old events and episodes and everything. The link to stake your WIP coin that you're going to get today is on there too. Yes, MLibT. When is MLibT speaking on the WIP? Like, has that ever happened? And if not, why? Anyway,
Yes.
Next week can't be it, but we're gonna get this. We're gonna get them on here. Next week we got Smoke from Own the Doge coming on. She was on like 6-7 months ago, and there's a bunch of cool new updates. We got Wizard X coming on the week after that, and some surprises coming up. MLibT probably. Thanks everyone for coming through, and I will see you all next week. Peace.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, MLO.
Thanks, Rizzo.
One, two, three, four. Sunshine, mashed potatoes. I want chicken, cheese. Fuck yes. Oh, cheese, oh, cheese, oh, cheese, oh. This is awesome, 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 oh. Sweet dreams are made of cheese. Pizza's good too. I like where this is going, yeah. Fuck cheese. Kill all the audio problems with fire, with fire, with fire. Death to audio problems. Lactose intolerant people, I am so sorry. Give me that cheddar. Give me that cheddar. I got carried away. We all love a good meme explorer song. Cheddar, cheddar, blue cheese. Better Way says cheese emoji. Rendon has cheese. Meme explorers with extra cheese. Death to audio. Death to audio problems. Death to audio. Audio problems. Cheddar cheddar won't go out for days. Cheese is like fuck yes, go death to audio. Audio problems. Death to audio. Audio problems. Death to audio. A gift of cheddar cheese. Audio problems don't deserve to live. Two emoji with the tongue sticking out. Emmentaler and Gruyere. That almost rhymes. Cheddar is money given now. Spend some of your cheddar on that, please. Rizzle says death to audio problems. Rizzle says death to audio. Oh, oh, Rizzle says death to audio problems. Rizzle says death to audio. Oh, 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 lots of gifts of cheesy things, all up in the Discord of Meme Explorers. Oh, lots of gifts of cheesy things. Cat with heart eyes, clap, clap, clap. Cheese steak, cookies, hi, cheese is the best. Gifts of cats with cheese on their faces, death, death, death. The only thing we love more than cheese is gifts. The only thing is fondue. Rizzle says death to audio problems. Rizzle says death. Audio cheese is live. Audio problems. Cheese is live. Oh, 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 yeah. Yay. The little kitten says LOL, and Elmo's on fire, and Ernie's got condoms on his ears, so fire, so fire. Death to audio, death to audio, LMAO, give me cheese, oh give me death to audio, death to audio. Vibe check, death to high ping. I want some lemonade, make cheese great again. Condoms on the ears, that's what it looked like to me. Oh, death to audio problems, to audio, death to audio problems, to audio. I'm vibing, make cheese lemonade When life gives you rotten cheese, you make cheese lemonade. So much cheese and some sriracha, some cheese and some sriracha. Me vibing big time when Rizzle coins. You make nachos, you make nachos. Love the song so dope. Stuff that cheese in your face. Stuff that cheese in your face with jalapeno. With jalapeno. In your face, cheese whiz. Pickles, yes, cheese whiz. In your face, I said death to audio, to audio, oh, death to audio, to audio, oh, death to audio, to audio, next thing audio, to audio, death to audio, audio, oh, death to audio, I'm audio, oh, death to audio, to audio, to audio, to audio, to audio, Elmo's audio, to audio, Gouda audio, having like the audio, shake audio, yeah, that's it. Oh my lord. Whew. I have to turn on the fan.